Hi, thanks for tuning in to my official YouTube channel, Reverend MeeLing. I've been known by a few names: Reverend MeeLing, Reverend Susan MeeLing, Lady MeeLing, Lady Dori, Belle, so on and so forth. So, I was able to speak with my daughter a little bit ago, which I'm very happy about. I am annoyed in other aspects in reference to specifically my biological parents proving exactly what I had warned in reference to other individuals. Because of the false claims that my biological mother and biological sister in specific, along with my biological father, had said was their reason, but was an excuse because it's not like they did it, and the proof is in the reality of them moving from Illinois to the state of Texas to help me with my daughter and my son, though at that time my son and my daughter. And so I got to speak with my daughter, which I'm very glad and happy that I got to speak with my daughter and see her on the techie Skype thing of that stuff. Nonetheless, in that regard, it infuriates me knowing that my biological mother, biological father, and biological sister's false claims to move to the state of Texas was to assist me with my children. And that sort of aspect in regards to when they moved to the state of Texas and they gave me that excuse, I told the people that I knew at the time that was not the case. I didn't believe it. I told my now dead ex-husband that no, they're not moving here for that at all. And I was told, you don't know what you're talking about. I said, no, I do. I know how my biological mother and biological sister are in specific. And I know for a fact they are not moving to the state of Texas for me, for my son, or for my daughter. I know that. Absolutely know that for a fact. I know that that is an excuse that they're giving, and I doubt that that is what they're actually telling people in Illinois. And I was told, you don't know what you're talking about. And I said, no, I know for a fact. I know it. I have this feeling that I know that they are only telling me that because they want me to feel as though I owe them when I don't owe them anything. I have a feeling they're moving to the state of Texas because my biological sister messed things up in Illinois, and she can't blame me for what she did in Illinois. So if they moved to the state of Texas, I would guesstimate Patricia had been the one that had pushed that the most, and she'd get a fresh start. However, my biological father had told me this thing over and over again, and he said, if problems follow you, you need to evaluate whether the problems are from what you did or if it's just you. Well, I guess in certain regards when it comes to me, there's a little bit of both in that one because of certain issues that have occurred because of me simply doing things, you know. That being said, my biological sister, on the other hand, how much I would guesstimate a whole bunch of people could very much say, oh, well, if Susan didn't do this, this is what Patricia said, over and over again. And so, speaking with my daughter and getting to see her beautiful face, and so happy to see her. So glad to hear her voice. It is absolutely infuriating to know that they did nothing to actually assist. Not that they had not been that way even when going through the various aspects. So when there was a point in time when I was in Irving, it was 2011, and I was speaking on the phone with my biological mother, and she said, you need something along the lines of, you need to just stop. You need to just not care. No, I can't. I don't have that. And so speaking with my daughter and her telling me essentially that Mike and Anna, my biological parents, essentially didn't want to deal with certain things. It's kind of like, well, maybe if you had actually done things correctly and actually did do things to assist the way you claimed you were moving to the state of Texas for, maybe certain things wouldn't have been an issue. For example, the stuff that was going on that I had told my biological mother and biological father about repeatedly. They had done so and actually helped, especially since my biological mother did substitute teaching over multiple courses over the years and all that sort of stuff. And Mike, my biological father, having gone through the system in regards to foster care and actually giving advice, things wouldn't have been so difficult. Now, I was told by my daughter that there were certain situations that continued on in McCoy Elementary School of Carrollton, Texas, of Carrollton Farmers Branch Independent School District. And yet, I have quite a few thoughts and opinions on that, especially in reference to the fact that I was constantly explaining to different individuals, this is what is going on. My daughter is not the only one who is dealing with this. My son is not the only one who's dealing with this. I was told, you don't know what you're talking about. No, I do. No, I do. I know what I'm talking about. I know what I've seen. I know what my daughter has told me. I know what my son has told me. I know what I have seen with my own eyes at the school. I know what I've heard with my own ears when in that vicinity. And I was told, no, you don't know what you're talking about. So my daughter told me that there were certain situations that occurred after, and she had done some research on McCoy Elementary School and all these other things that I told people were going on. And a part of me actually feels bad. Not just in reference of what happened to my daughter, feeling bad in that regard. Not just because of what happened to my son and feeling bad in that regard. Not just feeling bad in reference to the other students that I saw, heard, was told about that going on. I feel bad because I feel as though I didn't do enough. I know that probably comes across really weird because of everything that I did do. I made it to every appointment that I could for my daughter. The UBH or health in Denton, they were extremely helpful. I was able to go to the appointments and be able to see my daughter every day during the week. And I'd spend as much time as they'd allow me to be able to, because my son being underage to be able to go in, I was able to visit with my daughter and talk with her and get to see her in those ways. And as much as I don't like the fact that that was the only way that I was able to see her, at least I had that. At least I was able to make it to be there for her, show her through my continuous actions, because the drive from Carrollton, Texas to Denton, Texas and back to make sure for the different stuff, it's about an hour drive one way. Without traffic, by the way. And usually when I had to leave to go there as well as come back, it's usually traffic. It is the DFW area, nonetheless. Did everything I could. And to this day, I'm still extremely appreciative of the fact that I got to. Though towards the end of one of her stays there, just before the first residential treatment center, one of the medical either assistants or doctors had pulled me to the side as I was getting ready to walk out. And she had said, you are the only mom that has made such an effort as you have. I looked at her and, well, what do you mean? And she said, you don't know how many children, and I can't tell you that legally, but you don't know how many children we have that have to come through here. And I said, okay. And she said, you're actually giving us hope that there are actually people who care. I don't think you understand that. I said, I don't. I truthfully don't. And I apologize for not being able to understand that. She goes, no, you're dealing with what you're dealing with. There's no denying that. But please keep in mind, please remember that you're actually giving us hope, and we're the ones that have to, be in this area and doing all this stuff. And, you made us believe that there has to be more than just one parent that is going to care. And there actually has been. There's been more. That as you have come through here with your daughter, to make sure that you were able to visit with your daughter, that, there have been parents that have actually taken the initiative now. I was like, well, that's good. She's like, I don't think you understand at this point what that means. And I'm like, you're correct. I don't. And I feel bad because I don't have that in me to understand that. She went on a little bit, and then I wound up going to my car and driving, and the next set of appointments as I got to see my daughter and spend time with her. And I did the same thing when it came to her being in each residential treatment facility. Drove out however many hours to drive back, however many hours, to only be able to spend just a little bit of time, but at least there was that little bit of time that I got to spend with my daughter, and then be able to make sure that my son was taken care of and spend time with him. And I knew that there were other people, even in that particular, the first residential treatment center my daughter was in, the doctor there that my daughter had a lot of appointments with, that particular doctor had explained that I was one of the only parents that had made every single appointment to make sure I was constantly involved. When my daughter was in the residential treatment center in Little Rock, Arkansas, that was another one. The doctor there flat out said, you you don't understand how difficult it is to get certain parents to actually be a parent, and you are very much involved in just the amount of it's amazing. And I love my daughter, I love my son. I'm going to do everything I can for both of my children, no matter what's going on, as best as I possibly can. It may not be the the best way in an overall sort of way, but it's the best way that I can in this particular situation. And each one of those doctors had said something similar to the medical professional at UBH that said, you're actually giving us hope because of you actually making these appointments, you actually getting involved with making sure your daughter is squared away. And each of them knew that I was taking care of my daughter as well as my son. And so you're actually giving us a different viewpoint, because we've dealt with all these different individuals that can't legally go into, but you've actually gone all this way to make sure both of your children are taken care of, and you're a single mom. And each of the medical professionals, they all knew about my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. They knew about my subarachnoid hemorrhage in the frontal lobe of my brain, the coma I was in, my headaches, my migraines. They knew about my memory deficit and cognitive disorders. And they knew that I went from college algebra with trigonometry and calculus to second grade math, because of making sure that the individuals who were doing what they could to help my daughter, I thought that it would be wrong for me not to let them know that, give them that information, have that available so that they understood while they were doing what they could, so that way there was an open line of communication at all times. And they knew that not only was I taking care of my daughter, but I was also taking care of my son. And a lot of times they just kind of didn't seem as sad, I guess is the way to put it, as when my first, appointments would be when it came to my daughter and her stays. They kind of, when my daughter was first in each one of those locations, and when it came to UBH, or multiple times, where there was kind of a sadness, and then all of a sudden, like, the energy lightened up, and there was actual, and I guess that's what they meant by the hope aspect in that regard. And so, speaking with my daughter and listening and seeing her and being excited because I got to, because it's my daughter, of course. And so, remembering those different things where no matter what was going on, just doing the best I possibly could. And my biological parents and biological sister, unfortunately, it was as my daughter had explained on the phone call today, where she had said it just seemed too much of a problem for them, too much for them to handle. And I remember how many times my biological mother, not just on that phone call, by the way, when I was in Irving, because that discussion with my biological mother, that happened multiple times before that day. That was in person a whole bunch of times. And my biological mother would go and say that stuff to me, to my face. And it's just one of those, just because you didn't care about me doesn't mean that I have to be the type of individual you've been to my children. My son, my daughter, I actually love. My son, my daughter, I actually care about. Whereas my biological mother, and telling her, I know you never cared. I know that you tried to have me aborted. I know that you had hoped and prayed all these different things. And I know that the hopes and the prayers were for a better outcome, but not for me. What you hoped and prayed for me, you got. You got that. You got where, how, in reference of her not wanting me in her life, you got it. You got that multiple times, and yet you keep coming back to me thinking that I'm going to change. When no. If you want to come to me, I'm not changing. I'm exactly who I am. You are the one who has to change. You are the one who has to review how you look at things. You want me to be someone different? You want me to be more like your daughter, Patricia? That's not going to happen. So the irony in this particular official YouTube video, this is the 22nd of June, 2020, by the way. My biological mother had wanted me to be a miscarriage. Oh, well, she mistakenly thought she could carry and hold on to me. She had wanted me to be like another one of her abortions. Just like her prior abortion, that relationship is dead. As far as my biological mother is concerned. It might sound cold, might sound mean. How she treated me, how she treated my son, how she treated my daughter. Be realistic on that. And here's another aspect. How people have seen my biological mother in the state of Texas. She's slower now. She's calmer now. Think about how it was when growing up in New Jersey and in Illinois. Yeah, she's medicated now too, right? She wasn't medicated when I knew her. As far as my biological father, he's medicated. He's been medicated over the years and stuff like that. After he got to the state of Texas, that's when he took medications. So the fury and rage that people saw when it came to my biological father in the state of Texas, he's on anti-anger meds at those times. The time that he picked up the table and threw it, he was medicated. He picked up a filing cabinet full of jeweler's tools and threw it at me as a child. I was like 5 years old. The first time that happened. Table is lighter by technicalities. Nonetheless. And then there's my biological sister who had to be, known for everything in first place and blah, 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 and the most feminine of the feminine of the feminine. Well, there are certain types of females that are in the world that I have never been able to get along with. You're like my biological sister, Patricia. We don't get along. That's why. Because you're like her. And so, my daughter telling me that that's what essentially had, in that regard, it only infuriated me. Though I had to remain calm because it was one of those, I know for a fact, if it was my biological sister, her daughter, or her son, as far as my actual children, Anna and Mike would have jumped through hoops. But because my daughter, my son, according to Mike, Anna, and Patricia, not worth it to them. To me, my son and my daughter, I wouldn't have done everything I did to make sure my son and my daughter were squared away. And then what happened to my daughter and my son were squared away as best as I could. But as I explained to my daughter on the phone, when that Skype thing, unfortunately, it wasn't just her that was going on. And she said when she researched things, she saw it after, in reference to the different articles she found. It's been going on long before that. Sadly. But apparently they're looking at closing down McCoy Elementary School. And not just because of the COVID aspect. That's a shame. That is. Because education is important. However, if this time of the COVID stuff makes people realize it's not just what goes on in school, because I did explain this to the people at McCoy Elementary School in Carrollton, Texas, Carrollton Farmers Branch Independent School District. I had explained that at home, what is the home life, is only one portion of that triangle. The other portion is family, the other portion is community. And community, in that regard, meant school. That is the strongest, the triangle is the strongest shape with lines. And they didn't think I was serious. They thought that was a funny joke. I actually was told that by the guidance counselor at that time, Angela Ryder. She actually made fun of me for that. And I said, no, I'm telling you, that is the reality. That is the truth. Triangle is the strongest shape with lines. A balanced triangle with equal sides as the strongest. You don't know what you're talking about. You're just a mom. Went to school. I know better. They don't teach that? It's kind of important. So, and that was in the initial aspects of trying to make sure my daughter had what she needed, as well as my son having what he needed. And so, where I did everything I possibly could, and I'm glad my daughter had said that she knew that I had. She actually said that, she couldn't have had a better mom, which that in its own, that meant a lot. Because realistically, for so long I thought I had not been good enough. Because I couldn't do it all by myself. And I knew that I couldn't do everything by myself, going back to that triangle aspect. Nonetheless, in reference of my daughter actually saying that means a lot in so many ways, because I've done everything I possibly could. And I felt when everything was going on, yeah, I could be like my biological mother, but I can't. Could be like my biological father, but I can't. Could be like my biological sister, but I can't. Could be like all these different individuals, but I can't. It can only be me. And morally and ethically, I couldn't not also see that there were others. I couldn't turn a blind eye to what I knew and I saw. I knew my daughter wasn't the only one who was treated as such. I wound up seeing that and hearing that, being told about that. And I could have, but I couldn't be like others where just, it's not as, no, it is. And my biological mother despised that. Just, why can't you just, because I can't. And it is painful in reference to my heart when it comes to knowing that my biological mother remained in that. It annoys me in so many ways. But I guess I can't say that she didn't fully in regards, because she did teach my daughter and my son exactly who I am as a mom. She did show them exactly who she is as her. Same thing with Mike, who he is. Same thing with Patricia, who she is. And yeah, okay. No denying in regards to the ex-in-laws not necessarily being that thrilled with me. I don't deny that. I still did everything I could. Not just for my daughter. Not just for my son. And it might not be as grandiose in certain regards. However, the aspects which my daughter and my son know that I did everything I possibly could for them as well as for others. That means a lot. That my daughter knows that I did everything I could. And while I still feel the way I do because I could only do so much, my daughter being able to be taken care of, that is important. Same thing when it comes to my son. I never once stopped caring, despite what some might have thought. Where, as far as like my biological mother, biological father, biological sister, for them, it probably was out of sight, out of mind, glad, nowhere near, because despite the fact that I was in the state of Texas first, and technically my daughter and my son both were also in the state of Texas, not just because of being in, as far as my eggs, And, that whole thing. I can make that joke because, my eggs. But they were both born before my biological mother, biological father, and biological sister came to the state of Texas. Not only did I wake up here in the state of Texas after my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000, that coma, that would mean in my uterus that they were, or fallopian tubes or whatever. My son and my daughter were in the state of Texas first, along with me, technically speaking. But them being embarrassed of that, they didn't have to come to the state of Texas. I didn't invite them. Just saying. But my daughter, knowing and having that, my son knowing, having that, both of them, that's important to me. Though I am saddened that aspect of my biological mother, biological father, and biological sister, specifically my biological mother and biological sister, knowing how they have been. I understand in certain references of my biological father far more than I do my biological mother and biological sister. However, my daughter saying she knew that I had, and my son as well, he had said that before, he knew. That was important. That means a lot. Because we're, unfortunately, in regards of specifically my biological mother and biological sister, that sort of garbage that they did, my daughter is stronger and smarter, just as my son is stronger and smarter. They're able to know much more and be aware. And my niece wound up graduating college, one that I took with out to Florida. Going and doing that sort of stuff, being able to see. Who said being a mom isn't that important? That's right, my dead ex-husband did. Among others. By technicalities, I just can't stop being a mom because that's just how I am. But I am glad that my children, and that includes my niece in that regard, able to see more and do more and be better. Progress forward. But not just them. because apparently there were some who saw what I had been saying. And I couldn't figure certain things out, but there were those who could. And that was what I tried explaining so many times. That I knew that there had to be a better way, and that there could be more positive. I'm saddened that it took that much, but I'm glad that there are many more advances to taking more beneficial and positive steps forward. And that my children know and knew, but really know and understand and comprehend that I really did do everything I possibly could. So I actually felt as though my daughter was proud of me. And my son proud of me. And I've always been proud of my children. So I had, and this particular official YouTube channel video on this particular aspect. So I had mailed a whole bunch of different koalas and stuffed animals that I had kept of my daughters and for my daughter. Because there was one that she had before I wound up in Washington State. And I had just gotten a whole bunch other ones to make sure that there was at least one for each. Each year. Because I never wanted my daughter to feel that I didn't care or didn't remember her. I always had. Same thing with my son. And so she got that, and she remembered certain things. That means a lot. So, my personal take in this regard. So, I'm very glad my children know I did everything I You guys have a